Hello, Provo City. I am Superintendent Dow from the Provo City School District. Today is Monday, September 22nd. We hope you had a fantastic weekend. We just want to spend most of today's video cast reporting on our all-day board meeting last Friday. So we had an update on Franklin Elementary, which was at the very beginning of the meeting, and you can go back and watch all of this on YouTube, and it will have timestamps as to when these different topics are discussed so that you can hear the entire conversation and listen to those topics that are of the greatest interest to you. Principal Dalby talked about some of the challenges that they're facing at Franklin Elementary, how they've gone through their data, they've set goals for each grade level, they're going into data dives, they did so last week and this week, and some of the things that they're looking at to ensure that teachers are feeling really empowered as to the next steps that need to be taken with respect to their students. And the teachers are asking really good questions. I got to spend about 45 minutes in a first grade classroom this morning where they were doing some Tier 1 instruction and literacy blocks. So they were learning the sound AF and the letter A and how that all works together, and just kind of watching how the teachers put together their lessons and how they're preparing for their interventions. It was really great to see the good efforts that are happening there. We had a great conversation at our all-day board meeting about the Dixon site. We had several community members come and speak about the possibility of moving Timpanogos Elementary to the Dixon site, some of the challenges that are existing with the current elementary school, and that we could retrofit Timpanogos Elementary to fit the other needs that we have in the district that would save us some significant money in terms of relocating East Bay Post High there, adult ed, our ESL programs, and different elements of things, and looking at many of the properties that we have and how we can offset the costs for that. So we'll be diving more into the details of that in our October board meeting, but it was really helpful to start to see some of the benefits that we could have of moving that elementary school just because of its limited space and how crowded it is and the different challenges that they have there, especially with regard to safety. We also had a discussion about the Wasatch Wall. We have received a design from the current subcontractor, but not an approximate cost. We have sent the proposed design to 2 independent engineering firms, and they have some recommendations about some things that need to be included in that design. Our business administrator was meeting with Hogan Construction, who's our general contractor today, so that we can have more definitive action plans and ideas moving forward and get that put into place. We just don't want to move quickly and not get the right solution in place. And so we want to ensure that we have several eyes on this plan so that we make sure that we're doing exactly what it's going to take to ensure that we know how to mitigate water issues in the future. It doesn't matter as much about where the water is coming from as it does about can we mitigate it and ensure that everything is stable and well constructed in that particular retaining wall. We also had an update on our CAS program, which is our Gifted and Talented program for elementary, some of the challenges that we have. We talked about some various models that could be proposed. The board would like to have some pros and cons. We looked at initial costs that we have. Now our next step would be to get some information out to our parent groups, also look at some of the discussions that could come from our teachers and our principals, and then really separating the discussion that we have for the need for greater rigor in many of our classes and ensuring that that rigor is being met versus creating a genuine gifted and talented program that's more than just accelerated math. Really looking at project-based learning and what that looks like to really challenge students. When we do something that's just based in the neighborhood school, then the amount of time that is dedicated to that is much less than if you have a magnet site, but at the same time, it makes it more accessible to more students. So we have to weigh all of these different options as we move forward. And so we want to get more feedback from our community about that, as well as looking into some of the costs that are tied to it and what that will look like. We also had an update on our DLI program, really looking at many of the successes that reside within our DLI program, especially as we're creating a destination district, and that the challenges that we face at a small school, say like Canyon Crest, is very different than at a larger school like Lakeview. And so really looking at how do we mitigate some of the issues that we have when we have a DLI program at a very small school, and how do we ensure that every single student that's going through a particular school, regardless of the program that they're in, has a fantastic experience at our school. So those are some bigger questions that we need to address. Also, how do we help our teachers collaborate more effectively when they are at a DLI school and they're trying to interact with teachers that are non-DLI teachers? What does that look like? How do we ensure that we don't have students that are in a non-DLI track and they're stuck with those kids? I don't want to say stuck with, but they're in that same class forever and ever, and it might be 9 to 11 kids that they're in. How do we mitigate that, and what are some of the strategies that we can employ to ensure a great experience for all? So we have a lot of things to consider as we move forward, and then starting to look at both parent survey data, not just from DLI parents, but we really need to look at what are the concerns of the parents in those neighborhood schools whose students might not be participating in DLI, and what that looks like. We also have the great opportunity to have legislators in our classrooms this month. It is Legislator in the Classroom Month. We want to thank all of our legislators who have been so willing to schedule time to come into our schools, to see the great things that are happening, to engage with us in really good conversations about the challenges that we have and the successes that we have, and that they want to be partners with us in creating a great education system for all of our students. So we really appreciate the time that they're willing to take to be in our classroom. Last week, we had a fantastic Constitution Day on Wednesday. I got to go into a 5th grade class at Sunset View Elementary. It was Mrs. Raymond's class, and the students had recited the preamble, and we're talking about different parts of the preamble and what that means to them and why those parts of the preamble are so important. And that's just beginning their discussion on the Constitution and why it's such a unique form of government and something that needs to be celebrated and appreciated and understood fully. So we'll have a podcast that's tied to that, so you'll be able to listen to that and see the great things that are taking place in our classrooms regarding American Founders Month and also Constitution Day that took place last week. With that, we want to wish you all just a fantastic week, and we'll see you here again next week. Bye now.